Thank you for coming to your second breakout today. Thank you for being in this space with us. I'm Reece, the Vice President of Research and Education at Nehemiah, and I'm really excited to be here today with our two panelists, who are two amazing people that have done so much in our community and beyond, really nationwide, for both of you influencers for problems that are very, very difficult to solve. So for our session today, I'm going to have them, I'll introduce them, I'll have them tell you a little bit about the programs that they do, and then we'll just open it up for questions and discussion. Everybody ready? All right. And we are recording on Zoom, but it'll be facing this way, so don't worry about getting caught basically for sharing later. So, very honored today to be in the room with, did you want to do your family?
No.
Get involved in? Okay.
You got it.
All right. I've known these two guys for a very long time. And first we have Mr. Jerome Dillard here, who is currently the Executive Director of Expo Wisconsin, which is Incarcerated People Organizing. They've been around for about 10 years now. Previously, way back in 2004, he started a group called Voices Beyond Bars. That was kind of a support group, speakers bureau for people who experienced incarceration. He then went on and worked in the Department of Corrections, worked in the Dade County Jail, and is now part of this statewide, or started this statewide organization and speaks all over the country as an expert in this role. And then we also have Mr. Anthony Cooper, who's the Vice President of Reentry Services and Strategic Partnerships. And Coop's been in the Nehemiah role for about 13 years. Before that, he's involved in job development. He is also the Executive Director of Focus Interruption, which is focused on violence prevention. So please help me thank and welcome. And I'll pass it over to you all. If you just, you gotta start this time. So yeah, just share a little bit about all the things that you've done.
Sure. Hello everyone. Again, I just want to say this again, all you beautiful people that are here. So just to kind of give you guys a little snapshot about me is the fact that I'm the CEO for Focus Interruption, as well as Vice President of Reentry Services and Strategic Partnerships. For myself, I was released from prison in 2021. Oh, did I say 21? Yeah. Sorry. 2001. Yeah, 21, yeah, okay. All right. But 2001, been able to, my real reason originally, before I got into really doing the work that we've been doing, and being able to follow such wonderful leadership, meaning Jerome, Dillard, my Found a Life, at LSG, and really being able to just navigate different spaces. My whole goal was making sure that my sons didn't follow suit. That was really my only vision. And I knew I had to get out here and do something different, whatever that looked like, after applying for about, I want to say probably about 550 jobs. For the first job that actually hired me was Papa John's Pizza. But I knew that, when I looked at it, that was going to be a start, but it wasn't going to be the end of me, right? I know I was going to do something, but also I know when I came home, I didn't come home thinking of like, hey, I needed someone to give me something. I knew from just having a hustler mentality, I was going to build it if I wasn't going to get it, or if I was going to work for someone else to navigate. I knew I needed something different. However I was going to do it, but I know I was going to do it legally. So that was very important. Ended up doing job development for the Department of Education and Rehabilitation. Did very well in doing that, and then also doing job coaching. It was working with people with disabilities, but also I knew that there was a need for individuals that were actually in the same situation I was. Did very well in doing that work. Actually, is that how we originally met, JD? Yeah, when I had opportunity to read. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and continue to keep navigating different spaces from there. And then eventually went into corporate recruiting. I couldn't be who I am. And then eventually ended up working for Nehemiah as doing job development and navigating, working with individuals who have been previously incarcerated. Continue to keep working and getting had great leadership, and then also eventually end up just because I know this time goes really fast, so I want to make sure just a couple more nuggets. End up getting a pardon from the governor over
Just
some
to
time.
repeat, pardon from the governor.
Yeah, well, got a pardon from the governor, but also. Thank you all, but also being also I'm on the pardon board as well. So being able to navigate those spaces with the governor and others as we talk about, what needs to happen, and with the whole thing of really being a model of what needs to not only challenging some of the being in some challenging spaces and getting people to talk about why. What is why? How come this person is unable to get this? To me, I would say it's a simple job. You can't tell me a person can't pick up a box from here to here unless there's some challenge that they may have where they're unable to do that. And so really being a vessel of being able to navigate, but also having great leaders that as I got to see who I am and understand who I am and understanding my purpose and being able to help other people do the same way, do that as well. Working in the violence prevention space, working on a lot of other national efforts as well as local efforts, being able to provide different supports and so forth. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing right now that's not going to come out in some of the questions that Dr. Karen Reece has, and some of you all may have as well. So I'll end there.
Good afternoon. As Karen said, I'm Jerome Dillard. The way she introduced me, you guys probably said, that guy can't keep a job. He worked there.
Did it all, though.
But I do want to say, first I want to be clear about something, and that is we're in an age of punishment rather than rehabilitation. And in opening the last session, it's always been my theory that punishment changes no one. It did not change me. It wasn't punishment that changed me, but it was the hope and the love that I saw and received and returning home from prison here in the state of Wisconsin. This work began for me. I got out in 1996. And I started attending Bible Life Church back in '96. The only job, and that's, I wanted to say that the road to reentry is bumpy. The reentry road is bumpy. It's bumpy for most of us, as Cook was just saying. He worked at Papa John's. The only job that I could find when I returned to the community was being a dishwasher. There was a place right down the street there on J.T. Whitney's was the name of the place at that time. Yeah. I worked there as bussing tables, washing dishes, and it was a challenging thing, but I knew that I wanted something different and that he had something different for me. And so I stuck that out for a couple of years and was hired by the UW hospital some years later, but that's where my career started. As far as this work, in 2003, 2004, I was volunteering with Madison Area Urban Ministry, going out doing returning prison simulations and sharing my story and educating the community on what reentry looked like for us coming home from prison. Those simulations were powerful and enlightening. And we got a small grant from the United Way, And at the time, Mary Kay was the director of MUM, and she chose to hire me as the reentry specialist. And I thank God for her. We're still in touch. But that's what launched my career, and that was one of the first jobs I got, working with a population that's so dear to my heart. Following that, I believe I was at Nehemiah, came to Nehemiah, and we launched the reentry programs there. Myself on the tutelage of Dr. Alex G. We launched the reentry program there, and I started Voices Beyond Bars while I was with Mom. I kind of skipped over that part.
Mom, which is now Just Dane.
Just Dane now. But I started Voices Beyond Beyond Bars at Mom, and it was created for us. Mom didn't want it to be a program of Mom. They were like, you all need your own thing. And we grew. I made a lot of good contacts, and eventually we spent off on our own. For a few years, it was struggling. Wasn't a whole lot of funding being poured into these efforts of reentry, and eventually I took a job at the Wisconsin Resource Center, which is the mental health AODA prison here in the state of Wisconsin. It's very unique what they do there, because it's for those with mental disorders and AODA disorders, and the staffing there is 3 to 1. There's 3 staff members for every one person. Everybody's not DOC staff. They do have a mixture of DOC and Department of Human Services staff working there. I was there on the Department of Human Services. I drove back and forth from Madison to Oshkosh for 2 years, and I realized that it was having an effect on my mental, going into this dark, dungy, lockdown prison every day. And I spoke with the county exec, and he said, well, I'm looking for somebody to do reentry for the county, which was a great job, good benefits. And I said, get the man right here. Well, I applied, and surprisingly, I did get it. And working at Dane County Jail, there was some reasons that we couldn't do the continuum of care. I wanted to work with individuals on reentry before they left the jail, but the old jail here, we didn't have programming space. I had a little room that we worked in that would hold probably 3 or 4 people, or the chapel, where we could do groups, but I just found that we're just doing groups. There's not a continuum of care with the community, which I wanted to bring the community in, and individuals get to know what resources were out there. Well, long story short, I had an opportunity of someone approached me about starting a statewide formerly incarcerated organization of us, by us, for us. And I said, that's been a dream. And, years ago, back in Mondays, I had a dream that formerly incarcerated people would come together around the country. I know that we're massive numbers, and if we could just come together and function in unity, we could be a powerful group of people. And I'm saying that today, but it took some years to get there. And I thank God for Michelle Alexander, who pushed all of us. When she was here in Madison, she pushed us. It's time for a movement of you, by you. And I met some people from California, then I met some people from New Orleans, and all of them were saying, it's time for us to come together. And today we do. We had a outing in Detroit. Was it this year? Yeah, it was this year. We had an outing in Detroit where we brought together about 1,200 formerly incarcerated people from around the country, everything paid for. I'm like, whoa, somebody put some money into this. But
I got to go this year, and it was a DJ at breakfast. I mean, it was amazing. Yep.
Got us a bus, and Jerome, you need a bus. We're going to get you a bus, bring many as you can from Wisconsin, and we loaded the bus up and got on down there. But anyway, that was a vision that I had in 2004, 2005, that we would start doing that. And today I am the executive director of Ex-Incarcerated People Organizing. We started out as an advocacy organizing organization, advocating for reforms around our criminal legal system and supporting one another statewide in doing this work. We did that for 9 years, 8 years. And in 2023, I just felt that wasn't enough. We were not serving the population. We were advocating for them. We were organizing them when they came home, but they came home with needs. Jobs is one thing that we all know is a barrier for individuals returning to the community. And so after seeing women being released from prison homeless, or going back to the situation that led them to prison, I just felt that it's not enough opportunity for women leaving prison in our community. So we started what we call the Safe House. And I've always believed, even with Nehemiah, I kind of helped get Nehemiah House started. And one thing I said to Pastor G, we need dignified, safe, and supportive housing. We cannot have no prop house. And he took that to heart, and Coop took over from me when I left to go work at the prison, and did a phenomenal job at taking Nehemiah's reentry programs and projects to a whole new level. And I'm so proud of him. Let me complete this because we did open a house for women here in Madison. And it's a beautiful place. A lot of people came out for the grand opening and said, wow, this is great. What you all are doing is great. And we just purchased a building for women to unify with their families. Once they're out, many of them will come from the house. It's a step-up program that once they're ready to unify with their children, they've been working for a while, saving some money, etc., they can transition into an apartment where their kids could come and join them. And that's the stage where we are now.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more specifically about the programs that you've done with Nehemiah and Focus and Direction?
So with I'm just thinking because we've done a lot over the years. So with Nehemiah, one of the real true approaches, especially with my approach coming from a job development background, is the fact that where I knew that if we can at least being able to get people the right job opportunities, but also being able to provide the other additional support. So what I ended up doing with our housing, and particularly for Nehemiah, is the fact of being able to expand not only the relationship, to have a different type of relationship with the Department of Corrections, but then also being able to expand other properties that we can actually provide housing for men that was a little bit more, that is more long term, but then also want them to be able to provide, have dignity about themselves to say, okay, look, because for some, it was the fact that that was their first time actually having housing of their own and actually owning a lease, having their own lease and saying, you know what, unless I don't pay my rent, no one's going to put me out, right? Type of ordeal. To know that, hey, look, there's some responsibility that comes with this, and so on and so forth. But then also giving people, not necessarily say, and I hate to even use the word give, but really being able to navigate with them and giving them, really pulling them up and saying, okay, look, this is how we can navigate this, but also like, all right, what are some of the other challenges that you may have going on with you at this time? That means that there's other challenges challenges. If there's the fact that there's sometimes you never really have to wash your own clothes and things of that nature, and having these real types of conversations and navigating that with them, but also being able to put them in a different space when it comes to like man up. And then through our man up program to say, all right, not only are you able to have a space where you can really lay out these challenges, we want to also be able to make sure that you have that support around it, that's more on a regular basis. So it's not just the thing of just saying, oh, you know what, you're okay now. You know what I mean? Go ahead and go out. We're not here to be your probation and parole officer. We're here to be your brother, your community, to be a part of your village, to be able to help you navigate what life looks like. And then also to be able to take away that other barrier of saying, hey, I can't do this because, right? Hey, let me make sure I say this right. Every person who has been hired through Nehemiah, for our reentry and particularly, have been incarcerated. If you haven't been incarcerated, you know someone who has been incarcerated. So you have a different way in how you experience it for yourself and how you have to be able to navigate that, right? And so that was very important, not only for the way that we wanted to make sure our organization was ran, but also I want people to have their own life experiences with the hope of them either sharing or also being willing to have a different type of empathy of what is going on with that person. And if they don't quite understand, they have also other people that's a part of the team who they can talk to, right? And then we're able to navigate this thing together, which was very important for us as an organization. Now, with Focus Interruption, we respond to the hospital, we respond to the scenes throughout the community. The organization is actually started 2016, and then really have developed not only working on some other national things, but also being able to find different ways to support families. We don't have all the dollars and things of that nature, but what we do have, we have people that were willing to step up and at least try to do something, right? And for what we don't have a problem with asking, right? So if there's families that may need support for funeral costs or other relocation and things of that nature. We know that these are all needs, but also in the mix of all of that, we're also providing other support to say, all right, are there other things that you may need to kind of figure out what are some of those additional challenges? Also connecting people with therapy resources and things of that nature. Those are things that what we have done over the years. Well, I feel most of my hair is not gonna grow back up here, right? You know what I mean? But we didn't do this work by ourselves. We collaborated with other organizations throughout Dane County, some not in Dane County, right? To be able to get the work done, right? Because we know in order to really, really provide support, we need everyone, one way or another. We got kids. I want to make sure I want to lift up Clyde as well, because I know you have a dance. I just don't know the name of it. Performing Arts. Yeah. Say the name of your organization. The House Inc. The House Inc. Right. So, but there's a need for that, right? You know what I mean? Because some kids are not ready to have some of the hard conversations, right? Because also one of the things that's important for us as an organization is that we are wrapping around the whole family. So if we're able to send a kid over to House Inc., right? Or know that there's some type of connection, that those things are important. Because it's not just us, it's all of us together. So when we find different outlets and ways to be able to see whether or not it's something that we can support, it's something that if we can't do it, maybe someone else can do it, and really being able to connect the dots. And so, we have different relationships with law enforcement, the DA's office, and so on and so forth, different churches, and all those things were very important for us to be able to say, like, look, families need help. Are you willing to help? Hey, we're here. There's some things that we're limited to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Can you be a part of this mission, right? To be able to support this family, and being able to do that over the years. That organization we're coming up on 10 years as well. So it's been a lot. This is not hard work. It's more hard work in everything that what we do. You know what I mean? Because we're operating off of the heart from us, but also what we're able to give give to people. A lot of the stuff that we've been able to do is because of the simple fact we're operating off of our own lived experience as well, right? By being someone that was been incarcerated, but then also really seeing the challenges, but also knowing that where I could have been. To be honest, I had 4 years plus another 15 over my head. So that means that 9 out of 10, the Anthony Cooper who you guys, if I would have made bad choices, the Anthony Cooper who you see right now, it would have probably been Joe Bob or someone else. It wouldn't be me. I would have been probably just coming home 4 years. Right, so those are the types of things that I think about that and also I share with men and women that who I talk to or have talked to, not only in Dane County but also nationally as well. So it's a pleasure and it's a blessing to sit in front of all you beautiful people, and I never take that for granted. So.
I just want to say that with these two, I want to ask you a little bit about what allowed you to be successful. But one of the things that these two really have in common is, along with being really intelligent and savvy and strategic, these are some of the kindest, most empathetic people that I've ever known in my life. And just by that nature, just by that genuine caring for someone, mentioning they will actually answer the phone at 3 a.m. if you call and you need something. And that's just part of the work. And he said it's not hard work, it's hard work. It's also hard work. It is a 24-hour job and taking care and helping to make sure people know that they have what they need. And so I just really appreciate you both for that, because you're always just giving of yourselves. But if you could just share a little bit, you both have accomplished so much in your careers. What are some of the factors that you think were there that allowed you or helped you get to where you are or accomplish what you did?
You can go first, I'm going to say.
Some of the accomplishments. Well, I approach this work as ministry. As I said, I began doing this volunteering. And when I had got an opportunity from a small grant from the United Way to be able to do this as my job, I approached it as ministry, and I genuinely care about this population who I work for and with, and I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say much, but one philosophy I've carried throughout my whole career is we can't depend on government to do the things that we need to get done. It's more so true in this day and time than it was years ago, when I would say, we have to do this. And when I say we, those who have the lived experience, who have come through that maze and come out on the other end, it's up to us to pull our brother up, as a brother or sister up, and role model something. My tagline on my email is, "It is not merely enough for one to cast off his chains, but to live his life in a way that it will free others." Mm-hmm. Nelson Mandela, that's a quote from him. And it's on my email at the end of my signature. And I try to live by that. It's a constant reminder that I need to live my life in a way that it would model, maybe, hopefully, something someone else wants.
Thank you. I think for me, it was one of the things I often go back to this that I heard when I first started going to Final Life Church. One of the mantras is saying, you enter to worship and you exit to serve. All right. And so that is pretty much how I live my life. Some people, you like me or you don't like me, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna always be honest with you, but then also I'm gonna always respect you, right? And being able to just operate off of that alone, I think that's the way how we're all supposed to activate in the community, and we continue to keep building, right, and can continue to keep navigating this thing together. Because again, I'll always say I can never do the work. I can never do this by myself, right? There are individuals that where no matter what, there are people who I lean on and have just conversations with, right? We don't always see things the same way, but I respect what they say, and also they respect what I say, and then also even when we disagree, we say, okay, right? How do we keep building that? Is what needs to happen. And I think the more and more that we do those types of things, that's where it's not work. This is I feel it's a part of my purpose. Whether if it's working around violence prevention or if it's just working through reentry, at the end of the day, all of it is working with people, being able to show I feel my life is a vessel of being able to show people it's possible to be able to do something different with your life. Because honestly, I didn't think I would be where I'm at today, right? That's just what it is. But I think by being able to follow that light, that makes sense. But something to what Karen, she kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm hoping this isn't just a session that we talk at y'all, right? You know what I mean? We want y'all to talk to us, right? Because we want to make sure we're building community and making sure that we're addressing things and having conversation as a community. All right.
So Doug, I think you're saying.
Yeah, I have a question for you both.
And I will repeat, you asked the question, I'll repeat it on the mic so people can hear it.
Okay, good. So a question for both of you, but they're different questions. So for you, Coop, if you'd be willing to give us an example with the reentry of a successful, reentry, and then one that went bad, and if we can learn anything from why it went bad.
So the question is, can you give us an example of a reentry that was successful and one that wasn't, so we can learn from that comparison? And then you can ask the other one after that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think one of what I would say successful reentry, and when I found out, successful reentry is being able to find a way to be able to support people from day one. To me, honestly, I think reentry starts day of incarceration. There are men and women who I talk to this day that they've made some bad choices, but when they come home, they know that they're not coming home to nothing. And the fact that we're able to navigate that space with them once they can come home, whether it's housing, whether we're talking about employment, etc., right? Or sometimes it's even the fact of them just being able to get connected with their kids. To me, I think also unsuccessful reentry is the fact that it's a lack of sometimes not having any connections at all. And I base that off of some real life situations that where, some people that I've met that where they had some mental health challenges and things of that nature that may have needed medication and they never got a chance to be able to connect those dots. Or just felt like they were out here on their own. One of the worst things I think that I say this, is the fact that when I came home, I didn't know about the mums of the world I didn't know about Nehemiah or other. My whole thing was I just had to figure some shit out, excuse my language, but that's just, because I felt as though if my sons were to see me back in prison, that was going to be their norm. That was going to be where they were going to say, okay, hey, if my dad is here, so there's something about this place, that's a connection. So to me, if we don't make sure that cycle, that piece is not broken up, then it's going to always be bad for some, right? I ended up walking into a couple of different spaces, and I also having a family that, at least they did their best to show that they loved me and knew that. And I'm very honest even about my, I used to sell drugs. That's what it was, right? And so, and like, hey, you're more than just what you feel like you have to offer to us. right? As a man or a young man is trying to figure out who he is to be a father, right? The fact that, I'm trying to tear up to be exact. My son is in the other room, right? You know what I mean? And the fact to be able to see my son, who is a businessman, who is doing the things that what I wish if my father would have been around to be able to guide me or whatever, you know what I mean? To see that, it makes me, I'm just proud. Okay, all right.
His son is a business sponsor of this conference. Foxhole Construction, yeah. Your second question.
Mr. Dillard, if you could be in charge of the state of Wisconsin's correction program, Department of Corrections, for like 3 years with a clause that you could not be fired even if people didn't like what you were doing, what would you do?
So if Jerome Dillard was hired to be a Secretary of Corrections and could not get fired for 3 years, what would he do?
I love you for that question.
Well, I love that question too. First and foremost, we're gonna get some prisons closed around here in 3 years. We have to look at, number one, preparing individuals for the community. Again, we can't depend on government to do this. I believe in the lived experience and those who have been successful after returning to the community, that they owe it to their brothers and sisters to be a part of their reentry. But first of all, our system has been lingering at the 20, well, COVID had dropped down below 21 for the first time forever, and we're at
22 years.
Yeah, and we're right back up at 23. There's a couple of factors we have to look at.
Yeah, that's about
23,000. I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Couple of factors I feel play in that. During the war on drugs and states going after the dollars that the feds were handing out to build prisons, to pass 3 strike laws and truth sentencing laws, Wisconsin jumped on board. And between 1994 and 2004, Wisconsin built 9 prisons and bought 1 from CCA, Corrections Corporation of America. Back then, that's what they were called. They came into the state of Wisconsin and built a prison, Stanley. It was built to Oklahoma specifications. We pumped millions and millions of dollars into that. So as the Secretary of the Department of Corrections, let's look at all this money we're spending on Stanley, where they have no programming, where there's not a whole lot of anything going on other than people being warehoused. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of the prisons that were built. Get rid of the prisons that were built in the mid-1800s. Waupun and Green Bay were built in the mid-1800s. Let's get rid of these 100-year-old prisons, and we can't replace them with new high-tech prisons. Community corrections. At one time, to be a parole agent, one classification you had to have in that was being a social worker, having a social work degree. Now, if you're just taking law enforcement classes, that's where majority of those who are POs are coming from, not necessarily with social worker degrees. I would look at, in this 3 years, I would look at incorporating lived experience, get them more involved in the lives of those individuals who don't know how to change their lives. I did 3 censuses, one in Illinois, one in the federal prison system, and one in the state of Wisconsin. I don't say that proudly, but it's a fact. And the fact that who really helped me get it who had that aha moment was a guy who was a lifer. He was never coming home. We're playing chess and I'm seeing people going out, coming right back in. I'm saying, he just left here. This man looked at me, he was old then, he was an older gentleman, probably in his mid-70s. He said, you guys don't prepare for your release before you get out. Bam, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, I've been on this radio for 3 times, and I began to prepare for my release, running scenarios through my head. Where did I trip up the last time and find myself back in prison? Running those scenarios, making those plans, even learning to have a job interview was all part of the things that this guy walked me through. And so I would get this individuals with lived experience engaged more in the system.
Yeah, thank you.
So it may be pretty obvious to this group of people, but why should regular Wisconsinites care about prison rehabilitation and successful reentry?
So why should Wisconsinites care about prison rehabilitation and successful reentry?
Well, good question. I'll take it first if you don't mind. Rehabilitation is non-existent right now. It's all about punishment. Why should this group care about prison rehabilitation? First of all, 90-something percent, 98, 97% will be coming back to our communities. Second, they're going to be in our neighborhoods. They're going to be our neighbors. They're going to be the individuals who work in our stores or gas stations and things like that. So I think for them to be rehabilitated contributes to community safety. And there's a whole lot more we could do as far as community safety, but I hope I answered that a little bit in a nutshell. I'll let Coop take it. You need the question again?
Yeah, go ahead, say the question again, sir.
Sure. While it may be obvious, first let me say thank you guys for your service to the community and your dedication and passion for what you do. But while it may be obvious to this group, why should regular Wisconsinites care about rehabilitation in the prison system and successful reentry?
I love it. All right, so I think one of the main reasons is, for me, is the fact that where rehabilitation, prison doesn't necessarily rehabilitate anyone. That has been the thing that was been told, right? So one, if you all think, I almost want to say almost the same thing as what you said, if you all think that prison changes someone, it doesn't. Right, so if there's no rehabilitation that's actually happening in there, so when someone is coming home, the expectation is you thinking, hey, how's this gonna fix that person? There is no fixing. There is no changing the mindset.
Does it make people worse?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 it does. Mental health wise. The fact that if you feel like, I think Jerome, I'm thinking I don't want to mess up the section between this section and the one before, is the fact that if you're in a box, so just think about any of you here. If you're in a box, whether if you're in a box for 22 hours of the day, right? Or if you're just if you do get a chance to get out to work release or whatever, but your life is controlled, is that living? That's the question. Is that living? No. So if you don't see that as living, and you know that 9 times out of 10, well, I think it is actually 95% of the people that go into prison will come back home, right? So when they come back home and you're not accessible, you don't have the right tools to be able to navigate. So now you're dealing with someone who mentally there's some stuff that's not connected, right? So when you ask the question, why is it important? Why should it be important? Is the fact that you all know that none of you all are perfect, right? I mean, if you are, I mean, feel free to, kind of float for me real quick or something, right? You know what I mean? So that means that where you also could be judged for your imperfectness. So we're really talking, having that as a conversation. You want the hope of it to be some type of long-term support while that person is incarcerated to kind of dig into the roots of what's going on with that individual. So in my mind, that's why it should be important. But if you're not seeing that as being an outcome, that's why it's also important to make sure that you all are also challenging challenging the Department of Corrections and whoever, right? Why are we not putting in the right systems and making sure that where people are getting the help that they need and that the trauma and things of that nature that is being unaddressed is also being addressed and not overly medicated as well. So let me make sure I say that. Right, because medication is not going to solve, all medication is not going to solve the issue either. Especially because you can dope someone up as much as possible and someone's out here walking as a zombie, and now they're feeling unregulated. That becomes another challenge also. So I just want to make sure I bring that into this space. But so we want to make sure that where people are receiving the help that they need, even if you're going to live up to the name of the Department of Corrections. For my sake, right? All right, I'll be quiet.
Yeah, and
You're welcome.
just to add to that, when they say people don't get rehabilitated in prisons, people can serve out double digits years and never get treatment or programming for the factor that led them to prison. There are substance use treatment programs. Right now, at any given time, Jerome mentioned we're at about 23,000 for the total prison population. About 11 or 12,000 on our waiting list to get substance use treatment. And most of our prisons are at 50% or less staffing levels. So we're not even staffed right. So yeah, please.
I just have one practical comment. Is it really expensive to keep people in prison?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not rehabilitated and get out and go back to prison, that's our tax money that's supporting people.
Exactly.
My second comment is that the justice system is not fair to people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So white people, you say we're not perfect, but we may not get arrested for the same thing that you might.
Mm-hmm.
So there's where that white privilege comes into play.
The same outcome it's not the same outcome.
Oh, exactly. But anyway, so those aren't questions, but I just thought I'd comment because the expense is a big part of it. We're taxpayers.
So she mentioned the logical point that it's very expensive to incarcerate someone. What are we up to, like 38, 40,000 a year per individual? And if you're not corrected or get what you need to not go back, come out, go right back in, that's more of our tax money just getting essentially wasted. The second point that she mentioned was the extreme racial disparities that we have in our prison system. 6% of Wisconsin population is Black, and 42% of our prison population for men is Black, 20% for women. So, and then in Madison, the arrest rate for Black people is 11 times higher than it is for white people for the same kinds of crimes. So.
Thank you for adding that. Thank you for adding that information.
What else? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you guys for being here and giving us so much information because it is very helpful. When we look at the data surrounding like education and state testing, and then we look at the demographics surrounding prisons, do you guys believe there is a real correlation between the two when we hear rumors such as like third grade testing scores is how they're picking the number of beds in prisons? Could you guys give us your insight on that?
So the question is looking at education success and testing scores. And there's a theory out there that the number of beds we have for prisons are forecasted based on the quality of testing for third graders. So could they comment on that?
I love your question, right? Because, and I'll tell you why. I mean, when we really think about it, the fact that you all actually hear the data that was around that, right? There's data that shows that, right? And the fact that if you're not reading at third grade level, 9 times out of 10 you will go to prison, right? Or you have some type of involvement with the criminal justice system. That's and then on top of that is the fact that when I think about when prisons are being built in some of our smaller towns and things of that nature that are basically feeding into that community, that's a whole other thing as well, right? It's all about, to me, all right, I'll just go ahead and say it. We family, right? Or, kinfolk. So it's the fact that it's a business plan. When you look at Department of Corrections, flat out, it is all big business.
Yeah.
So, I mean, until we also have that as a conversation, right, and then really being able to really tear down the business plan, the business model, is going to always be the same, right? So if they build a prison, if they would build a prison right there's already a mechanism to make sure it will be filled.
Mm-hmm.
No bed in there would be unempty, right? So and depending on who fills it, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's the business model. America is built off of business.
Yep.
So we have to make sure that that's the conversation to everything what you said. So if that is not it's a fact. Because if we have our babies who are not understanding, as they get older, and they don't have the proper tools on how to navigate life or reading is the main thing, right? And if I don't understand math, that's another thing, right? And then also you add mental health, you add some other things that are in there, you add poverty and so on and so forth. All of this, that's all big business. The South Side is just now starting to look like it's turning into something else, right? Because many years ago, I mean, we'll say 10 years ago, but we'll say probably 20 or 30 years, or probably even 50, it was already introduced as the pathway to the university. It's the gateway to the university. So that's, again, now we want to build over here. Some of the houses that were in that neighborhood, in that community, are no longer there. Because the business plan was already there to be able to kind of, how we going to take over this area, right? Southside used to be considered the worst side of town at Madison. I've been in Madison since I was 14 years old. For many of you all that are here, I was a Somerset kid. Right, you know what I mean? So that area where everyone used to say, okay, if you lived over there, so forth, if you use that 52713, then 9 times out of 10, my mama couldn't move or find somewhere else until we moved to Simpson, right? Which was also considered a bad neighborhood or whatever the case may be. But if there was a time where if you tried to move to Fitchburg or even further on the west side, those things were not happening. So we try to keep Black folks, brown folks in this one area feel like, hey, and these are families that want to be able to do something different, but if you put everyone in a poverty area, what do you think is going to happen? Violence, right? Say it loud. Don't be shy, right? You know what I mean? Violence, drugs, all the things that, in some sense, somebody thought that they can kind of control. So if it's here, we don't have to worry about it nowhere else until it happens in someone else's backyard, right? Until it's in your backyard, right? It's your neighbor that may have got affected, their child or someone like, oh, I would never have thought little Bobby is in this situation. Our Madison is this damn small. I'm sorry. All right.
We're family.
Well, yeah. I try to cuss all the time, but we're this small. So when we talk about issues that happen, yes, they are affecting everyone, even though you may not have a relationship. So when you hear about guns being fired, whether someone's hit or not hit, it's affecting you. It should. It should. You should think about why is this happening? It's not about the fact that, hey, it's those people over there or those people over there. We got to talk about what's affecting, why is this happening just in our community together? And what can we actually do about it? And I do want to say this because I was going to wait till later, but I every time I see him, I got to smile and things of that nature, because my blessing, who I was talking about earlier, is actually in the back of the room. It made me, man, that's my youngest son.
Give it up for youngest Cooper.
Again, because if I didn't know anything else, I knew that I needed. And when we talk about some of our men and women that are in prison, sometimes it is about how can you tie yourself to a purpose. My sons were my purpose. My oldest son is in the Navy, so he's not here, but those were my purposes. And I was blessed with all the other stuff that came along with it, but a lot of people need to be able to figure out what their purpose is. No one comes out of the womb talking about, hey, I want to sell drugs, I want to do something evil, right? You know what I mean? So I just wanted to just make sure I lifted it up in this space too. Oh, sorry.
And just to piggyback off of that business plan, in my own studies, what I've realized is that in the 90s, when the Somerset migration of Chicagoans came to Madison, this city was this small. And what it seems like has happened, which has happened for 500 years, you bring folks to a plantation to build wealth. And what we are seeing, like you said, in the South Side now is that wealth, as well as it has already happened in other neighborhoods and community, is starting to sprout up. So for me in my studies, what I've realized is that the business plan did start a very long time ago during that migration. And when I find myself in these spaces, what intrigues me the most, right, is when non-Black people are in the room, I wonder, do these things connect with you? And if they do, why the silence?
Good question. And Jerome, did you want to comment on the first part of that?
No, I'm good.
Got it. Yeah.
Let me suggest something. One of the things we started about guns and the deaths and firing, one of the things that I think is, at least for my purposes, is missing is a cause and effect. We don't know why it occurred or how many different reasons they occurred. We don't see the stats. We don't know about what actually happens at the end of the day to the people who are involved. And I think that at least part of that is due to, it's not published, it's publicized as a headline, but we don't see any further explanations associated with why it occurred. Is it drugs? Is it interpersonal animosities, etc.? And I think that we're missing, as a community, at least, we're missing the bigger picture on how each of these incidents occurred. Now, when I was practicing law, I knew some of this stuff. I'm no longer practicing, so I have no idea of what's going on in the communities that need support.
Well,
So-
actually, Larry,
Oh,
if you don't mind, I disagree with you, Larry. I don't think it's that we need more facts about this case or that case. As a white citizen of Madison, I should care more, and I shouldn't be quiet, and I need to learn about who needs to hear my voice. It's not enough just to vote, especially now. And I think a lot of white Madisonians in my family have long complimented ourselves for being so progressive, and we, but Madison is growing up now. It's becoming a real city, and we need to value the things that make it as diverse as it's getting, not fight what is changing. But it's frightening because it's unknown. And there are plenty of white people who have never had a 5-minute conversation with someone who wasn't either working for them or in an employment, an employee at the store.
So
I think Nehemiah-
a couple perspectives there, just to recap. One is that when we see things happening in the community, we being white people, broadly community, we don't often have the full context, and maybe that means we can't relate. Now, whether or not we need the full context is debatable, but the other point was just as a community member, we should care and we need to care. So I'm just gonna move us, we only have a couple minutes left, so you
Oh,
want
wow.
to just respond?
Okay,
It always
yeah, I'm sorry. One, I would say thank you for answering the question, and then thank you for things which you don't know, right? So I think being able to get connected with organizations like ours, it kind of goes right back to, because Madison is small, it makes it easier to make sure that we're, even in this space right now, making sure that you're part of people's newsletters and things of that nature, because some of those things are there, and some of those things are, but it goes a lot further than what is also being put out there. And honestly, this may sound kind of bad. Like I say, hey, we family, we cool, right? So, but some things is not meant for you to know right there, right? You know what I mean? Because there's some stuff that may have to be worked out. Because sometimes people want to be just in the know, just because, but you're not trying to activate to do something about it, or to be able to energize and be able to help in the space, right? You know what I mean? So one of the things that we talk about in our organization is the fact of, all right, so we know that this is going to happen, so what can we do about it? Right? And then also, who are people that we need to be able to connect with to be a part of that conversation, including, and sometimes, because everyone can't be, sometimes we may want to include families, but sometimes, depending on what the situation is, we have to be able to work to be able to get to that point, right? So, and that looks different for a lot of people as well. So, I just wanted to make sure that that's said. I respect what you said, and I like the fact that you were very honest, because sometimes some people don't want to say that thing that may feel a little shaky in a space like this. And thank you for what you said as well. Sir, I think you had a question.
Oh, I'm just gonna ask a quick question. How much money do you think it would cost to have a robust reentry program?
How much money would it cost to have a robust reentry program?
So what I would say, because I like that question, right? And this is why I think sometimes, I don't want to say I would say probably about $5 million, but it has to be consistent. Not just saying, hey, I'm gonna give this and then, you know what, figure it out. I hate sit down. I'm sorry, I've been trying to sit down and trying to figure it out. I think that's people just trying to throw money at a situation and just figure out. You say, you know what, they'll figure out later, and hopefully it'll be okay. We can say that we did something. But if it's not something that's going to be on a regular basis, to be able to look at different ways and knowing that there is going to, you also have to leave space for times that where things are not going to be worked out the way how you may feel that it's supposed to look. Just like I think when you hear, earlier when we talk about as far as like we have all these data practices or whatever. The state had, 25 different things that they say, hey, we want to run this test or this data around this or some type of
All the different studies that we've done.
and you spend $2-3 million, but then also where do they go? They're on the shelf.
Right.
Hundreds of millions on the day they don't study.
So I've asked MPD, county, city as well as county, like, hey, can we get a chance to look over some of that stuff? Because something had to have worked. There has to be some information in there. Or are you just going to go ahead and recycle, or I'm sorry, not recycle, just figure out another reason to say, all right, so we need a new bus stop. And I'm not against bus stops. I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, and so we are at times with Jerome. You can answer that, or any final words for the people.
Well, as far as your question, I just want to say that was a significant investment in getting us to where we are. The Bill Clinton crime bill was $28 billion in 1994. There needs to be a significant investment. And matching that or half of that to get us out of what we're doing. You know what I do want to say though, what keeps me going is those who I've seen have success after incarceration. There's one I want to mention right now. I stood in front of our office at Madison Area Urban Ministry, and I was talking to a young man who was on his way to the University of Indiana. We were having that conversation, and I recall saying to you, make us proud, because he had just come home. He went to Whitewater for undergrad, but he had just came home from prison a couple of years ago, went on to school. And when I see him, it just gives me awe, because he's a PhD psychiatrist, formerly incarcerated. And I don't want to put nobody on the spot, but Dr. Andrews, I just want to say thank you. You know, you sat there. I have to give you your props, because, you know, you made us proud. And I just want individuals to see what can be done with individuals who have arrested conviction histories.
Yeah, thank you so much. Help me thank our